think your thoughts are private, that they happen in silence, that no one hears them. But Jung knew better. When you think, you are speaking, and something is listening. The psyche, he said, is not a monologue. It's a dialogue, a conversation between your surface mind and something far older. The dream, the shadow, the archetype, the collective. So the question isn't, what are you thinking? It's, who are you speaking to? And what are you summoning in return? You've been taught to think of thinking as control, that you sit at the center of your mind, steering the wheel, crafting thoughts like a sculptor with clay. But what if that's a lie? Carl Jung saw something deeper. He noticed that most thoughts don't feel created. They feel received, like they arrive from somewhere else. An idea you didn't plan, a voice in your head that doesn't sound like yours, a dream that shows you something you didn't know you knew. This wasn't random, it was communication. Jung taught that the psyche is not a closed room, it's an open channel. And when you're thinking, you're not inventing, you're listening. That inner monologue? It's not a monologue at all. It's dialogue. With your unconscious, with the archetypes that live below awareness, with the mythic patterns coded into your psyche since before you had a name. This is why thoughts can feel foreign. Why some arrive with weight, others with urgency. Why a passing idea can shatter you or awaken you. Because you are not the only voice inside your head. Your ego may speak in goals and reason, but the shadow speaks in fears. The inner child speaks in longing. The archetype speaks in symbols. And the self, the deep center, speaks in stillness, waiting for you to hear. Jung called this the dialogical nature of consciousness. A truth modern culture buries, that when you think, you are speaking into the unconscious, and it answers. Sometimes in dreams, sometimes in synchronicity, sometimes in symbols that won't leave you alone. This is why people repeat patterns, not because they're broken, but because they're having a conversation they don't know they're having. You think you're just overthinking. But what if your looping thought isn't you being anxious, but your unconscious knocking louder, trying to be heard? This is not mystical fluff. This is psychic mechanics. Your conscious thoughts are like speech. The unconscious listens and responds in kind. If you speak fear, it echoes fear. If you speak truth, it reveals deeper truth. If you ignore it, it will speak through symptoms instead. Anxiety, projection, illness, obsession. Because the psyche does not go silent. It adapts. Jung said, the unconscious is not just evil by nature. It is also the source of the highest good, not only dark but also light. Not only bestial, semi-human and demonic, but superhuman, spiritual, and in the classical sense of the word, divine. When you think, you're not whispering into a void. You're participating in creation. The only real question is, do you know who you're speaking to? And are you ready to listen when it speaks back? Most people speak into their minds and hear nothing in return. Not because the psyche is silent, but because they've forgotten how to listen. Carl Jung never saw the unconscious as dead matter. To him, it was alive, autonomous, creative. It heard you, and it answered. You don't dream at random. You don't get symbols by accident. You don't fall into patterns with no origin. Everything speaks. The psyche responds to your conscious mind like an ocean to a whisper. Not always in words, but in images, in motifs, in mythic echoes you mistake for mood swings, irrational fears, or divine inspiration. Jung's patients didn't just suffer symptoms, they suffered from ignored messages. Anxiety was a conversation they refused to translate. Repression wasn't silence. It was a voice gagged. This is the secret Jung uncovered. The unconscious has a voice. And when it's denied, it doesn't vanish, it projects. What you don't face inwardly, you will meet as fate. The relationships you attract, the conflicts you repeat, the dreams that return like storms, all of it, a dialogue. Jung called this symbolic thinking, where dreams are not hallucinations, but communications, where archetypes, the hero, the mother, the shadow, the trickster, are not just literary devices, but forces that live within you. They speak through your imagination, not to entertain you, but to summon you. Because the psyche isn't just reactive, it's invitational. It doesn't only echo what you say, it challenges you to speak deeper truths. And this is where thinking becomes dangerous, because every thought is not just an idea, it's a signal. When you think in fear, you speak fear. And the unconscious sends you matching images, anxious dreams, tight synchronicities, negative encounters, not to punish you, to reflect you. When you assume weakness, you summon shadows. When you assume power, you summon guides. And when you refuse to assume anything at all, you become an open line for whatever wants to speak through you. This is the true terrain of the psyche, not a monologue, but a mythic dialogue. Your inner world is populated, your thoughts are speech, and your soul is always listening, alongside something older, deeper, collective. Because you are not thinking alone, you are thinking inside a universe of minds, a living field of consciousness that existed before you and moves through you still. And the more aware you become of this truth, the more clearly you will see that reality is not objective. It is responsive. You speak into the depths, and the depths speak back. If your thoughts are speech, if every idea is a signal, then you are not just thinking, you are summoning. This is the truth most people cannot bear, because it strips away the illusion that your inner world is inconsequential. Jung understood. Thought is not neutral. It shapes the psychic field around you. And the unconscious doesn't respond to your desires, it responds to your dominant emotional tone. Fear, shame, self-betrayal. These aren't just feelings, they're broadcasts, and the psyche listens. So when you think in fear, the unconscious doesn't soothe you. It doesn't contradict you. It echoes back what you've declared. It's not punishment, it's mirroring. Jung called this the psychic feedback loop, where unconscious content is projected onto the outer world until it is seen, named, and integrated. Left unconscious, your thoughts become summoning spells for chaos. This is why people live inside the same stories for decades. Not because the world refuses to change, but because they keep speaking the same script over and over, and the psyche obeys. If your thoughts are speech, then you can speak new archetypes into motion. You can invoke clarity, sovereignty, inner resilience, not by forcing them, but by assuming their voice. When you think from love, the unconscious doesn't just affirm it. It builds a world around it. A dream shifts, a synchronicity appears, an inner gate opens. Why? Because the psyche wants coherence. It wants the conscious and unconscious to meet each other without contradiction. This is why Jung's method of active imagination was so powerful. He didn't just interpret symbols, he spoke to them. He entered dialogue with the unconscious, treated it as alive, and allowed its voice to inform his own. This is the true spiritual danger of unconscious thought. You speak fear into the mirror, and the mirror multiplies it. The shadow stops chasing when you stop running. The trickster loses power when you stop lying. The child returns when you make space to feel again. And the self, the wholeness Jung called the totality of who you are, steps forward, no longer hidden behind your thoughts, but expressed through them. Because the psyche doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be present, willing to speak clearly, consciously, inwardly, so it can answer not with chaos, but with coherence. And once that feedback loop aligns, your reality begins to change. Because thought is not mental noise. It is psychic ritual. It is invocation. Every time you think, you call something forward. A pattern, a power, a path. And the question isn't whether you're speaking. It's whether you know what or who you've been speaking into being. You've been speaking this whole time, even in silence, even in doubt. Even when your mouth said nothing, your thoughts spoke everything. They spoke to your psyche. They spoke to your body. They spoke to the unseen world behind the veil of matter. And now, the question becomes inescapable. What have you been saying? Every repeated worry, every quiet insult, every assumption of failure, of unworthiness, of collapse. None of it vanished. All of it echoed. You weren't thinking. You were invoking, calling forward the life that matched your inner state. This is the terrifying power of the mind. It doesn't describe the world. It summons it. And Carl Jung knew, if you don't take responsibility for your thoughts, they will become your fate. He wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And yet, the soul is not silent. It's waiting, listening, answering. The modern world taught you that thoughts are disposable, that as long as you don't act on them, they're harmless. But Jung saw it clearly. Your thoughts are formative. Each one seeds the unconscious. Each one shapes the energy field around your life. You are always speaking, not to the world, but to the forces that shape it. And this is where responsibility becomes sacred. Because if your thoughts are invocations, then your identity is the altar, and your attention is the offering. This is why change feels impossible for most. Because their mouths say, "I want freedom," but their minds say, "I don't deserve it." And the unconscious listens to the one spoken most often. No reality can be born from contradiction. No transformation comes from mixed signals. The universe doesn't care if your thoughts are true. It only cares if you believe them. And what you believe, you become. You are never just thinking. You are speaking into the field, into the unconscious, into the shape of your reality. So ask yourself, what have you been saying without knowing it? And who or what has been answering? At Arcane Praxis, we don't think casually. We think ritually. We shape reality from within. If this resonates, speak back. Tell me, what thought have you been repeating that no longer serves you?